This is Following on India. That is Saurabh Somani. This is Jarrod, Kimber. We're on talkSPORT's cricket YouTube channel. We're going to be talking about the fact that number 11s in this test match have now batted for 2 hours. Half an hour for Scotty Boland in the first innings, half an hour for Mohammad Siraj in the second, and now Scotty Boland has batted for 60 minutes. This is the greatest ground for number 11s in the history. I think this is where Jeff Thompson almost stole a game for Australia way back when. There was also the Mike Whitney defending Richard Hadley. It's a strong ground for number 11s, but it's not exactly what I expected to be talking about with everything that was going on. When Australia were 91 for 6, I wasn't thinking, I wonder if Scott Boland can bat for an hour.
I was halfway through the day, I was thinking of I'll have to, quickly come up with new and inventive ways to describe how great Bumrah is, which we can still do. But yeah, then Scott Boland just... So I was wondering what it means for India. Like, obviously, it's very frustrating for the bowling side. We said last test that last wicket partnerships are hugely entertaining. So they are hugely entertaining. But obviously, for the bowling team, they're very frustrating. But what does it mean for India? Can they draw any comfort from the fact that Nathan Lyon test average 12.5, Scott Boland test average 7.5, have batted for 100 plus balls and had a 50-run partnership for the last wicket? Or is it just a old ball effect?
No, I think, well, it is the old ball effect. But that's what they should be thinking is, if we can survive, we put ourselves into a position where we can score runs. Nathan Lyon was playing some lovely shots, right? Scott Boland, not as many, but we could score runs, and also, if we have to, we can block out for a long period of time. And we've seen that. It's not an accident when it happens 3 times in a game, right?
Yeah.
So if you go back to one game that I remember really fondly, which is when Mohammad Shami and Jimmy Anderson both made 50s batting at number 11.
Yes.
Right, that was a pitch that once the new ball went, it was actually very hard to get wickets on. And so once you got set and you as long as you played straight, it was very hard to get you out. And number 11s, if they show any discipline, like Boland has here, you could do that. So I think if you're India, you're like, well, we should get 2 bites of the cherry. We do have an ability to win the game, although in some ways by taking all these extra wickets, they've actually slowed this game down. To such an extent that it's going to be harder for them to win it now than it was before. But they have a chance of winning it, and also they will have a chance of drawing it. So it's fascinating. It's also worth noting that Scotty Boland was so confused by batting that long that at one stage he asked for gloves. They brought out 2 gloves and he only took one of them. Like he understood that batters asked for gloves, but he wasn't sure how the full process went. And like you could see the 12th looking at him going, no, there's 2 gloves here, Scotty. And he's like, no, just the one for me, as if he was Michael Jackson or something. So, look, I think you're right. As someone, we'll get onto the sort of the full thing of everything tomorrow. But let's just focus a little bit more on today. What India really needed was someone to step up and take some wickets who wasn't Jasprit Bumrah. And Mohammad Siraj actually probably takes the more important wickets. I'm not saying he bowled better than Bumrah, but he took the wickets that sort of started it all off. Constas was out early, but then Australia actually did well to get themselves into a position where they'd been knocking the ball around for a while, and Siraj gets 2 wickets, doesn't he? He gets Usman Khawaja, and then he gets Steve Smith out. The Steve Smith one, I think we have to admit, Steve Smith played a large part in his own demise there, but there is certainly an element, I think, of that there as well.
Yeah. I think, Steve Smith, you could say, played a large part, but I think India had done well to sort of strangle him, till that point, especially the pre-lunch period, where I don't recall ever seeing a higher ratio of played and misses or beating the edge to actually catching the edge and being dismissed in recent memory or even long-term memory. I can't recall, because it just seemed like there's so much happening and it's going on happening, and there's still no wicket falling because the ball is just missing the edges. And
it could have been, they could have been 25 for 4, Australia, quite easily.
Yeah, and like it didn't seem like India were that old thing of bowling a little too short to get the edge or something. It didn't seem that also. It just seemed that the ball was just missing somehow.
But also, like, if you go back and you look at Steve Smith's innings, it looked like he was batting with a wet piece of cardboard. Like, every time he tried to play a shot, he would cloth it in the air or, hit it onto his pads or spoon it weirdly. Like, the balls just weren't coming on. And then you had the inconsistent bounce as well. You had some balls keeping a little bit low, some bouncing extra than you would expect. There was some huge seam movement. That over to, the Bumrah to Khawaja, like it was ridiculous. It was a waste of our time, that over. Because there was no way that Usman Khawaja was going to get a bat within a foot of any of those balls, right? Like, there was so much going on early on. Australia gets themselves back in. Siraj gets those his second wicket. And then we go back to the Bumrah show again.
The Bumrah show, just... do you remember we talked about this after the first test? Whether, he would tail off or would he be able to maintain this form? Did you think at that time that he would be able to, almost not just maintain but even rise above it at times and for so long, for across 4 tests, right? Like, okay, this innings is almost over, so he has bowled 8 innings, 7 innings and a bit in Adelaide. So he's bowled so long, and even when he has been flat, he has been India's best bowler, and when he has been switched on, he has been absolutely unplayable. I can't think of another bowler I have seen in recent memory, or again even in longer this thing, to have this kind of a series. Mitchell Johnson in the 2013-14 Ashes was terrific, but there was also that added fear factor with Mitch Johnson in that series, right? Like you could sense that the batsmen are scared of getting hurt and hit, and
it was also that was helped quite a lot by the fact that Ryan Harris almost
yes,
as many wickets at the same time. Like, Ryan Harris was kind of setting Mitchell Johnson up. Jasprit Bumrah has done it more or less on his own. Siraj hasn't had a terrible series, but he's been average. They haven't got any wickets out of the third pacer really since Harshit Rana's first spell. And so, they're in a position here where Bumrah is doing it on his own. And that's the amazing thing, that he's been able to continue with that. And had he got wickets earlier on when he was bowling even better than later on, like, who knows where this game would be? Scotty Boland might have been batting for 2 hours by this stage.
Yeah, that's where this game would have been. Scotty Boland would have been 50 not out, Nathan Lyon 75 not out, and the partnership would have been 150. Yeah. So, but yeah, Bumrah just makes us search for adjectives every time, doesn't he? He's just like that good, and every time you think that, oh, this is a peak, and he just goes and does something else, and you think, oh, this is a peak, and then he goes and does something else. He's already having one of the, I think, all-time great series by a bowler in any conditions against any opponent ever. When you factor in that it is away against Australia, in the kind of bowling attack he's leading, it just makes it, I don't know. We haven't seen cricket since the 1800s, obviously, but at least for me, this is the best bowling performance I've seen in a series by a bowler. The only one that comes close, probably, and that might be because I've watched more of India than other teams, is maybe Harbhajan in 2001. But that was just a shock factor. Harbhajan was new then, and he hadn't been worked out or seen or anything. Bumrah is like a veteran cricketer now, and he's doing this. So, like, it's even more impressive.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a phenomenal effort. What about Marnus Labuschagne? I wonder where your current thoughts are, because that could be a very important innings in the end. What he did, I felt like 80% of the time he was playing and missing, but it's ended up being quite an important knock.
It could end up deciding the series, if Australia win this test, it could have ended up deciding the series. And this is the guy who everyone wanted dropped after the first test, who it seemed like there were legit reasons to drop also, because he just couldn't buy a run. And to be fair, he could have been out for just 7 even today. But Yashasvi Jaiswal, who's normally a pretty safe sort of fielder, he had, I don't know what sort of day he had in the field. He dropped 3 catches. One of them was tough, 2 were straightforward. And Manas also had that very close LBW shout. Do you remember against Bumrah, which was given not out and came back umpire's call by like a millimeter almost. Yep. So he had that luck, but I think outside of those pieces of luck, I think really hats off to him for the battle he showed. He just stayed there, which is maybe something that the Indian batsmen need to emulate, especially the top order, because this whole series has been a new ball series almost. So you need to do that against the new ball, and you need to basically just see it off, not Either you do a Constus or you do a Marnus. I don't know if there is any in between that they can do.
I also find it interesting that like all Marnus's problems have been since he's regained his form. Essentially, he just keeps giving his wicket away with just a weird swipe outside off stump. Like if that was like if you think about the 2 wickets that he's given Nitesh Reddy in this series, where you're just like, what are you doing? And this one was like, what is the idea of that shot? Like, there's a stacked cordon. And it's like, it feels like it hits the middle of the bat and goes exactly where he's aiming it. It's so bizarre, the whole thing. Jaiswal, I mean, there's 2 things. India completely overreacted to the drop catches from Jaiswal.
That's true, yeah.
I think 2 of them flew to him. You know, they're standing a lot closer than normal because the balls aren't carrying. And you're going to have that. But I think it also showed that India really, from the start, were not coming into this going, let's just, you know, sometimes when you're bowling in the 3rd innings and you don't get wickets early on. So they get Constus, and then there's a bit of a period. The sting goes out. That never happened with India. It felt like that passion was there the whole time. Like, you know, Virat Kohli might never be able to walk again. He spent so much energy out in the field, cheering and being excited and everything else. They really did believe all the way through those plays and misses that they had a very good chance.
Yeah, I think they did. And I think that was a very important point you said, that they were standing closer. I think that is probably the best explanation I've heard for the dropped catches. It didn't occur to me then, but it makes a lot of sense. If you are standing closer and you're used to standing at a certain distance in the slips, I think it messes with your reaction and timing a little bit. It's bound to, right? Like because you're changing something. So I think that could be the main reason for those drops. And yeah, I think it was also fairly uncharacteristic of Rohit, the way he reacted to that second drop chance especially. Rohit is a very, you know, almost Dhoni-like calm on the field. He doesn't show that much emotion. He has his one-liners that he delivers to fielders, but that you catch only on the stump mic. If you just see from outside, you won't catch whether he's overly upset or overly happy or whatever. Overly happy, yeah, but overly upset, I don't think he ever shows. Yeah, Virat Kohli makes up for it, of course. One leap he had was almost, you know, like a basketballer-esque. The way he jumped. But to come back to that, yeah, they were definitely in it to win it. I don't think they ever thought at any point that they can't. The pitch obviously must have helped. It is still, even whatever we have seen of the uneven bounce and the new ball movement, I think it is still the best batting pitch of the series that we have had. And they should, if their batting order fires, now that they know that they have cushion later on also, with Nitish and Washington Sundar there. Although I think it would be a mistake to keep them lower down. It's worth it. Depending on the match situation, it's worth it punting on Nitish coming in a little early. What do you think? Like, let's say they are 80 for 2 or even 70 for 2. Would you want to send Nitish in or Virat Kohli in?
I don't think that's a question you want to ask of most Indian fans, because they've moved on emotionally from Virat Kohli at this stage. So, look, I get it. I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting things about the game tomorrow. So, no, you're right. What they do with their batting order is fascinating, because they have 8 batting options, right? So they can play around with it in a way that you wouldn't normally need to do or want to do, but they could definitely look at it from that point of view. I think you've got about 40 overs of the ball doing something. That's a long time to get through. So I'd rather have my top order players try and do that rather than my number 7, who's been batting very well at number 7, and suddenly saying to him, now we want you to go in and do the same thing against the new ball. Like, I get it. Yeah, it's a bit like Australia giving Constus up the order.
Yeah, I guess the trade-off that I'm asking is, like, would you rather have Nitish facing the old ball or one of the other batters? Who do you think will be able to capitalize more? And will Nitish, with the style of his play, ensure that the ball loses movement a little earlier than 40 overs because he'll bash it around?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's bashing it around in such a way that, like, he's not Ben Ducketing it or anything, is he? Or Constus, you know, like he's batting quite normally. So I probably wouldn't make that change. But look, there's lots of interesting things. The first thing is the MCG is not a chasing ground. And, already people on social media are starting to go, well, no one's ever chased this many at the MCG. And it's like, yes, the old MCG pitch used to run along the ground by day 4, right? Sometimes by day 3. It was a terrible surface. For such a great ground, it was like famous in Australia for being the worst pitch. And they fixed that. And they got when they got the drop-in pitches, they then had some good drop-in pitches, then they had some bad drop-in pitches. But it isn't a pitch that deteriorates. There is some clear deterioration, though, in this surface, right? Like, you can't... The 2 balls that Travis Head and Mitchell Marsh went out to, which was, very close to each other, they both bounced on the same length, and one shot up and one went low, right? The Alex Carey one shot a little bit low. So there's a lot to be said from there. You said this off air, but I'll say it now. You said this might actually be, for the first time in this series, after hearing it for every single day of this series, finally a first session that could be very important. If Australia don't take wickets, this game is well and truly open, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if Australia do take wickets, it might still be a slog, but it's very hard for them to lose.
Yes. But do you think Australia will declare overnight, or just for kicks continue batting a little, just to get more overs into Bumrah?
The fact that they kept batting on and they didn't declare when they could have had a pop tonight suggests to me that they will probably keep batting on a little bit longer. And we know that Cummins is a defensive captain and a pragmatist, right? And he's probably thinking, let's get this into a situation where it's very unlikely that we lose. And that if India have to go, they have to go quite hard, which also brings wickets into play, right? So I think that's more likely. And if that's the case, they will bat on.
If they bat on,
it's the new ball now, though. They should be dismissed pretty quickly, these 2.
But if they do bat on, what they risk losing is 2 pops with the new ball.
Yes. Yeah,
so,
agreed. Yeah. but they kind of already have, because the best way of doing it would have been to declare and allow yourself 5 overs to bowl tonight with the new ball. Come back tomorrow with the new ball, knowing that if you get late in the day on day 5, you also have the new ball, which almost gives you 3 pops to the new ball. So, and part of that is that not only did India take wickets, but Australia didn't score very fast, right?
Yeah.
Which is not a good sign for India if you need to score fast, right? Like, you're 91 for 6 and Bumrah's bowling. Like, I understand it from that point of view, but it didn't look to me like it was an easy wicket to score fast on, even if later on it became a hard wicket to get wickets on.
Yeah, I think objectively that is true, but if you're the Indian team, you should be thinking, no, it's just Bumrah effect. He was making it more difficult. He was doing something with his wrist to make the ball to Mitchell Marsh pop that much, to Travis Head pop less, or whatever. He was putting more shoulder into it. This is that. You have to, I guess, think like that. No, you can't go in thinking that this pitch is going to play tricks. You have to play normally.
I mean, I do think this pitch is going to play tricks, and I do.
Okay.
I do find it interesting.
No, but
having said all that, I still think. What did I say yesterday? All 4 results were possible.
Yes. I was going to come to that.
All 4 results are still possible. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying put the house on a tie, everyone. I am saying just keep the tie in the back of your head that it is very possible that we see that. Saurabh, we'll be back again tomorrow to have a look at this. It's been a fascinating series all the way through. That's Saurabh Somani. I'm Jarrod Kimber. This is Following On India on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. See you again tomorrow.